Welcome to the Data Strategic Advantage channel.
Glad to be here.
Our topic today is data architecture.
Ah, yes, data architecture. It's crucial, but often overlooked.
Okay, so like a lot of folks in the data world, we hear the term, but maybe we're not exactly sure what it means or why it matters.
Right, so at its core, it's about crafting the blueprint for how your data is organized, stored, and used.
Okay, so it's like building a house for all of your data,
Yeah,
right? You need a solid foundation and a well-thought-out plan to make sure everything is working together.
that's a great analogy. Instead of bricks and mortar, though, we're dealing with databases, servers, and data flows.
Right, and like any good blueprint, I imagine a good data architecture ensures your data is accessible and secure, but also that it's actually valuable to your business.
Absolutely, and most importantly, variable to your business.
So it's more than just the technical stuff. It's about aligning that technology with the goals of the business.
Exactly. Imagine you're a company that thrives on real-time customer insights. Your data architecture needs to support that by enabling quick data processing and analysis.
So you wouldn't want your insights to be lagging behind.
Exactly, because your architecture can't keep up.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned databases and data flows.
Yeah.
Is that where data modeling comes in? I've heard that term thrown around a lot.
Data modeling is the heart of data architecture.
Okay.
Think of it as the detailed blueprints for each room in our data house.
Okay.
And you have different types of models, each serving a specific purpose.
So different blueprints for the plumbing, electrical, and so on.
Precisely. You have conceptual models for the big picture, logical models for the details of how data is related, and physical models for the actual implementation in databases.
Oh, yeah.
Each level adds another layer of understanding.
So if we were modeling customer data, for instance, we'd have like a high-level view,
Yeah.
then a detailed map of how all the customer data connects to products and orders and all that,
Yeah,
and then finally the nitty-gritty of how it's all stored.
you got it. And here's where it gets really interesting. Even seemingly small details like naming conventions can make or break your data architecture.
Naming conventions, like how you label your columns in a database.
Yeah, that sounds pretty basic.
Yeah, it does.
It is,
Yeah.
but it's crucial.
Okay.
Imagine searching for a book in a library with no consistent cataloging system.
Oh, yeah.
Chaos.
Yeah,
Consistent naming conventions ensure everyone is speaking the same data language,
right.
making your data much easier to manage and use.
So it's like having a universal dictionary for your data.
Exactly. And this is just one example of how meticulous we need to be with data architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Every decision impacts how effectively you can use your data.
Makes sense? It's all about setting yourself up for success down the road.
Right. And that includes thinking about how your data architecture can adapt to future changes and challenges.
So it's not just about building a static structure. You need to factor in flexibility and evolution.
Exactly. The world of data is constantly changing, and your architecture needs to be agile enough to keep pace.
So it's like building a house with the ability to add rooms or remodel as your needs evolve.
I like that. You need to think about scalability, new technologies, and even changes in your business strategy.
Yeah,
A rigid data architecture can quickly become a bottleneck.
that's fascinating. So we've covered the blueprint analogy. We've talked about data modeling and the need for adaptability. What other key considerations should we keep in mind when it comes to data architecture?
Where one crucial aspect we haven't touched upon yet is the delicate balancing act involved in data architecture decisions.
A balancing act. What do you mean by that?
Well, take data normalization, for example.
Okay.
This is the process of organizing data to reduce redundancy and improve data integrity.
So making sure that everything has its designated spot, like in a well-organized pantry.
Exactly. But sometimes, for the sake of performance, you might need to denormalize your data, even if it means introducing some redundancy. It's a trade-off.
So it's like choosing between a perfectly organized pantry and the convenience of having certain ingredients within easy reach while cooking.
Precisely. Data architects constantly face these kinds of decisions, weighing the benefits of one approach against the potential drawbacks. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
It sounds like data architecture requires a deep understanding of both the technical aspects and the business needs to strike the right balance.
Absolutely. It's about making informed decisions that align with your specific goals and constraints. And speaking of constraints, security should never be an afterthought.
Security, yeah, that's a big one, especially with all the data breaches we hear about these days.
Right.
How does a good data architecture address those security concerns?
Well, security needs to be woven into the fabric of your data architecture from day one.
Okay.
It's about incorporating multiple layers of protection, from access controls and encryption to data masking and auditing.
So it's like building a bank vault for your data with multiple layers of security measures to keep those valuable assets safe.
Exactly. A good data architecture will consider security at every level, from the physical infrastructure to the applications and users accessing the data.
It sounds like security is an ongoing process, not just a one-time implementation.
You're absolutely right. As technology evolves and new threats emerge, your security measures need to adapt as well. That's why a flexible and adaptable data architecture is so critical.
This has been incredibly insightful.
Yeah.
I'm starting to grasp the complexity and importance of data architecture. But before we dive deeper, let's take a quick pause. Welcome back to our deep dive into data architecture. Before the break, we were talking about security being like a bank vault for your data.
That's right. And building a strong vault requires a deep understanding of the blueprints,
The data models.
the data models.
We touched on data modeling earlier.
Yeah.
Can we unpack that a bit more? Like, what's involved in actually creating these models?
It's like detective work, really.
Okay.
You start by understanding the business.
Mm-hmm.
What information do they need? What are their goals? Then you identify the key entities, the who and the what of the data.
So for an e-commerce business, for example,
Right.
who would be the customer?
Customers, exactly.
And what might be like products and orders and so on.
Exactly. Those are the building blocks of your model. Then you figure out how they relate.
Okay.
A customer places an order.
Mm-hmm.
An order contains multiple products. It's about mapping out the flow and the connections.
Like drawing lines on a blueprint to show how people move through the house.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you don't stop there. You also need to define the specific attributes of each entity
Sure.
for a customer. It's things like name, address, purchase history.
Mm-hmm.
It's about adding that layer of detail to your blueprint.
So you're essentially creating a comprehensive dictionary of all the data elements and their relationships.
That's a great way to put it. And this meticulously crafted data model
Yeah.
becomes the guide for how everything is structured within your systems.
It sounds like data modeling is a blend of art and science. Like, you need the technical expertise, but you also need a deep understanding of the business.
Absolutely. And it's not a one-and-done task as the business evolves.
Right.
The data model needs to evolve with it.
Speaking of evolution, how do you ensure your data architecture can keep pace with this like ever-changing data landscape?
One way is by embracing agile methodologies.
Agile. I've heard that term in software development, but
Right.
how does that apply to data architecture?
It's about breaking down big projects into smaller, manageable chunks
Okay.
and iterating based on feedback.
Mm.
It's about being flexible and adaptable to change.
So instead of building like a monolithic data warehouse that takes years to complete,
Right.
you're taking a more iterative, modular approach.
Exactly. This allows you to respond to changing business needs and incorporate new technologies more effectively.
It sounds like a much more realistic and sustainable approach in today's fast-paced world.
It is, and it aligns well with the need for ongoing data governance.
Now, data governance is a topic we haven't delved into yet. What does that entail?
Think of it as establishing the rules of the road for your data.
So like traffic laws to ensure data flows smoothly and safely.
Precisely. Data governance defines who's responsible for what, sets standards for data quality, and ensures compliance with regulations.
So it sounds like having a solid data governance framework is really essential for maintaining control and consistency.
Absolutely. It's about establishing clear processes and accountability to ensure data is treated as a valuable asset and managed effectively.
This all kind of ties back to the need for a strategic approach to data architecture.
Exactly. It's not just about technical infrastructure. It's about aligning your data architecture with your business goals and ensuring it supports your long-term success.
We've talked about modeling, agility, governance. We even touched on security. It seems like data architecture requires a unique blend of skills.
Data architects need technical prowess, of course.
Right.
But they also need to be excellent communicators, problem solvers, strategic thinkers.
They need to be able to speak both the language of technology and the language of business.
Precisely. They are the bridge between the technical and the business worlds, translating complex concepts into actionable plans.
This has been an incredibly insightful conversation. I'm starting to appreciate the depth and complexity of data architecture. It's clearly much more than just setting up some servers and databases.
It's a strategic discipline that requires careful planning, ongoing adaptation, and a holistic understanding of both technology and business.
Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear your final thoughts on the value of data architecture and why it matters for businesses today.
In today's data-driven world, a robust data architecture is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. It's
Mhm.
the foundation for turning data into a strategic advantage, allowing businesses to make informed decisions, optimize operations, and uncover new opportunities.
It sounds like a well-designed data architecture can be a true game changer for any organization.
Absolutely. It's the key to unlocking the true potential of your data and transforming your business from data-rich to data-smart.
That's a powerful thought. And on that note, we'd like to thank you, our listeners, for joining us on this deep dive into data architecture.
Don't forget to subscribe, and don't hesitate to tell us in the comments what topics are important for you.
We've covered a lot of ground in our deep dive into data architecture.
We have.
It's clear that a well-designed architecture can be a real game changer for businesses.
It really can.
But it's also clear that it's not a set it and forget it type of deal.
Right. It's not a one-time thing.
Yeah, I love that analogy. So how do we ensure our data garden stays healthy and thriving over time? What are some of the key things to keep in mind?
One crucial aspect is ongoing performance monitoring.
Okay, so keeping an eye on how well your systems are handling the data load,
Yeah.
identifying any bottlenecks or inefficiencies.
Exactly. You need to be proactive, anticipating potential issues before they become major problems.
Right.
This might involve optimizing queries,
Okay.
adding more storage capacity, or even restructuring certain parts of your architecture.
It sounds like a continuous process of fine-tuning and adjustment.
It is, and it's closely tied to another important aspect, adaptability.
We talked about the need for a flexible architecture earlier, but how does that play out in practice? How can organizations ensure that their architecture can evolve with their changing needs?
One way is by embracing modular design principles.
Okay, so breaking down your architecture into smaller, self-contained components
Yeah,
that can be easily modified or replaced without affecting the entire system.
exactly. This allows for greater agility and makes it easier to incorporate new technologies or adapt to changes in business requirements.
It's like having a house built with prefabricated modules.
Yeah,
You can add a new room or upgrade the kitchen without having to tear down the whole structure.
that's a great analogy. Modular design is a key enabler of flexibility and long-term sustainability in data architecture.
Now, throughout this deep dive, we've touched on the importance of people and processes
Yeah,
alongside those technical aspects.
right.
Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Sure, a data architecture is only as good as the people who manage and use it.
Right.
That's why having a strong data governance framework is essential.
We talked about data governance a little earlier,
Yeah.
but can you just remind us why it's so crucial in the context of data architecture?
Sure, data governance provides the guardrails for your data architecture.
Yep.
It establishes clear roles and responsibilities,
Mm-hmm.
defines data quality standards,
Yeah.
and ensures compliance with regulations.
So it's about having a set of rules and guidelines to ensure that everyone's on the same page and data is handled responsibly.
Precisely, without strong data governance, your data architecture can quickly become chaotic and unreliable.
And what about the skills and expertise needed to manage and evolve a data architecture? What should organizations be looking for in their data professionals?
Data architects need a unique blend of technical and business acumen.
We touched on this earlier,
Right.
but it's worth emphasizing. They need to understand the intricacies of technology, but also be able to align those technologies with business goals.
Exactly. They are the bridge builders, the translators,
Yeah.
the architects of the data world.
They need to be able to see the big picture while also understanding all those little details.
Precisely. And perhaps most importantly, they need to be lifelong learners, constantly adapting to the ever-changing data landscape.
This has been a fascinating journey through the world of data architecture. Any final thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I encourage everyone listening to view data architecture not just as a technical endeavor, but as a strategic imperative. A well-designed and well-managed data architecture can be a true differentiator in today's data-driven world.
Yeah.
It's the foundation for making smarter decisions, driving innovation, and achieving lasting success.
Wise words. And on that note, we'd like to thank you, our listeners, for joining us on this deep dive into data architecture.
Don't forget to subscribe and don't hesitate to tell us in the comments what topics are important for you.